John Carpenter Buckland, first mayor of Louisville, rich man, right? His father was in the captain in the Navy, the Revolutionary War. John Carpenter Buckland himself served in the Rhode Island militia. He's a Rhode Islander, comes out of Rhode Island. He owns several ships, so he's a boat owner, a ship owner, right? His father was the captain of the Navy, and then his son John Carpenter Buckland owns all these boats. He marries Sarah Smith in 1803. Then he moves his family to Louisville in 1819, 1820. In 1823, Buckland becomes secretary of the second life insurance company in the state. So he's an insurance salesman, right? So you have this insurance salesman, a legacy person of the Revolution. He becomes mayor's first Louisville on March the 3rd, 1828. So on March 3rd, 1828, Louisville gets its first mayor. This is 1 month after the state legislature passed Louisville City Charter. So state legislature says Louisville, you can become a city. Then they elect their first mayor. Per the terms of the charter, election was held and the top two candidates were presented to the governor. It doesn't say if it's a general election or if it was the city council voting for it. It does say that there was only 650 votes were cast total, and that John Carpenter Buckland defeated William T. Tompkins by only 20 votes. So 650 votes, that's 325 if you split in half, and there's only 20 vote difference. So that's 615 and 635. So he got 335 votes. John Carpenter Buckland got 335 votes at least to be able to win the election of the first one. So only 325 or 35 votes. So that's amazing. Only 335 votes. John Carpenter Buckland becomes the first city council or first mayor of Louisville. So John Carpenter Buckland, George Washington of Louisville, Kentucky. So he would serve 6 one-year terms. So actually, it said it's 5 years, but you add the one. So 6 one-year terms. The powers of the mayor were somewhat limited in the early charter, not even giving the mayor a vote on the more powerful city charter, except to break deadlocks. So not only are you only have 1-year terms, but you don't even have any power. It's all the legislator has the power. You don't even have a vote unless there's a deadlock on the city council. So unless the legislature is 10 to 10, then he gets some power. But actually he has no power. He's just a figurehead. And you only have the bully pulpit, right? So during his tenure, John Carpenter Buckland successfully argued for the establishment of the first public school in the city and state. So, argued for the establishment, got the first public school in the city. Good for John Carpenter Buckland. Supporting education. Good fucking roots right there. John Carpenter Buckland will also be dealt a devastating flood of the city in February 1832. So, flood in Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville, Kentucky has lots of natural disasters that happen. It's a flood. It's right on the Ohio River. So, the chance of it flooding is not that remote. So in 1832, there was a flood. Right? There's a big flood in '97. There's some flash floods. Actually, a few years ago, there's ice storms that had happened in Kentucky, and then you also had tornadoes. 1890 was a big tornado in Louisville. So I don't know if Kentucky is just a bastion for all these natural disasters, but they happened. And it happened in February 1832. John Carpenter Buckland had to deal with it. He established the first school. He had to deal with the flood. And then he was pushed for the draining of many of Louisville's early ponds. So when he first got here, there's a lot of ponds. He drained a lot of them. He was a Unitarian. He served as mayor 1828 to 1834. His pastor called him so complete a skeptic that he will believe nothing he has not seen or touched. He thinks that the sciences of chemistry, geology, anatomy, geology, etc. are all humbug. Right? So he's a fucking Grinch. He's a Ebenezer Scrooge. Right? He doesn't believe in any science. Fuck chemistry, geology, anatomy, geology. So the first mayor of Louisville was such a huge religious skeptic, right? He believed in Jesus as being the Savior and God being real, right? Even though that's total bullshit. And he believes that bullshit, but he doesn't believe in chemistry, geology, anatomy, geology. So he thinks they're all humbug. So it just kind of shows the character of John Carpenter Buckland. He's such a complete skeptic. He doesn't even believe in basic sciences. This is the man that was elected to lead Louisville into the 17th century. So 5 years, John Carpenter Buckland, George Washington of Louisville. Now, after him, you have John Joyce, and John Joyce only serves the one term that he is allowed to serve, and that's it. So John Joyce, 1834 to 1835. So let's learn Wikipedia. John Joyce. John Joyce is the second mayor of Louisville, Kentucky. His term of office extends 1834 to 36. So maybe he served 2 one-year terms. He was born in Louisville, son of a pioneer who came to Louisville in 1783, settled on the lot of the corner of 6th and Main Streets. Joyce studied law, admitted to Louisville bar, elected to state legislature, elected mayor March 4th, 1834, served 2 one-year terms. So I was mistaken, he had 2 one-year terms. Then he was a city court judge, 1837 to 1851, which is what he did most of the time, and then he dies. And he's buried in Cave Hill Cemetery. Pretty unremarkable political career. He was mayor of Louisville for only 1 year. In fact, actually, virtually all the Louisville mayors have really unremarkable political careers. Can anybody name one of their mayors? Can one mayor come out? Jerry Abramson, he's been mayor for, 500 years. So, he's mayor for life, right? He was also like the main mayor of the U.S. mayors. Right, all the mayors have like this little organization. He was #1. So Jerry Abramson, it sucks like when you read history to have all these like little details. 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. You see what they did. They didn't do shit. And what's their legacy? What are they going to go down for? They didn't do nothing. So like it's hard to kind of say, well, they did this. John Buckland, he established the first public school in Louisville and Kentucky, so that's, John Carpenter Buckland's legacy. He also had to deal with the flood, and he drained some ponds, so that kind of gives the idea that it was just brand new land here, and so you had to empty the ponds out, I guess, for some land. John Joyce, nothing. He was here for a year, didn't do shit, and then that's it, and then we're done with him. So the John Adams of Louisville, Kentucky was a very unremarkable man. The third mayor of Louisville, W.A. Koch. So W.A. Koch is the third mayor of Louisville. His term of office from 1836 to 1837, as mayors were then elected to one-year terms. So 1 year. So 2 years. Let's see. John Carpenter Buckler was in there for 5 years. John Joyce was in there for 2 years, and then W.A. Koch was only there for 1 year. So W.A. Koch, right? That's the third mayor of Louisville. He was the first to be elected by the city council, so it still maintains the aristocracy. It changes things a bit, but it still maintains the aristocracy. So instead of being elected by the people and having the governor choose him, now instead of being elected by the people, he's being elected by city council, and the city council chooses who they want. So again, like the electoral college, the aristocracy needs to refine the opinions of the masses. The working class people aren't able to decide for themselves who they want, and so therefore we have to treat them like children. So W.A. Koch, third mayor, he was one-year term. So talk about a one-term president, one-term mayor. We don't know anything about his early life. He was elected to city council in 1834, and then from 38 to 43, previous mayors had been selected by the governor. W.A. Koch is the first to be elected by city council. This was problematic, and it took 3 weeks before a conclusive vote was reached. So by having city council choose the mayor, it took 3 weeks before they figured out, that was a shitty system. Lots of votes, and eventually he's elected. And so he ran in another convoluted election in 1841, this time voted on by the citizens. So 1841 was voted by the citizens, which is amazing. So eventually they get democracy. So Louisville gets democracy 1841. And this is the Frederick A. K. or David L. Betty. David L. Betty, Frederick A. K. and W.A. Koch are all fucking running. It's a three-way horse race in 1841. And so three-way horse race in 1841, and it was popularly elected. So first time the people get to choose who they want to choose, and they choose David L. Betty. So before David L. Betty, you have another one-termer, okay? Or no, my bad. My bad. You have a one-termer, W.A. Koch, and then after W.A. Koch, you have a three-termer, okay? Frederick A. Kay. Now, Frederick A. Kay, he is a man, a white man. He's the fourth and the sixth mayor. So, like Rutherford B. Hayes, he's a non-consecutive mayor. Louisville has 7 non-consecutive mayors. So, Louisville's always changing up their system. They're changing up their politics, changing up their rules. You know, like they did with the filibuster in Washington, D.C. They're, you know, not only are they changing the charters, but they also have one-year terms, so they're always in constant change of their political leaders. And so always in a constant state of flux, and it almost feels like they can't catch up with the times. So Frederick A. Kay, his term of office extended 1837 to 1840, and then he serves 2 years, 1844 to 1846. So the people of Louisville like Frederick A. Kay. Frederick A. Kay come in after W.A. Koch. So W.A. Koch is first elected by the city council. He's in there for 1 year. And then Frederick A. Kay is elected for 3 years as a Whig. Okay, and that's important. So you have Whig influence. Well, what's a Whig? Well, Whigs were very big and influential in Kentucky. The number one Whig was Henry Clay. So Henry Clay is the number one Whig, right, of the world. And Henry Clay was, he comes out of Kentucky. And Henry Clay, he's you know, he's a Kentuckian. He's in opposition to Andrew Jackson's poor white man Democratic Party. So Andrew Jackson, that, you know, on the front of the $20 bill, he's the Trail of Tears, right, Indian genocider, this war. But he's also for the poor white man to be able to vote. And so he's the one that they credit to the senators and the congressmen and the president were eventually voted by the general population. General population, the will of the people, won, right? If the people should elect their own senators, the people should elect their own congressmen. So Henry Clay was against Andrew Jackson. Now, Andrew Jackson was a strong personality. He's an Indian genocider, the Trail of Tears. So, you know, he's actually like a real bastard. The Supreme Court says Trail of Tears is illegal, and he does it anyways. So that's interesting. If the Supreme Court rules something, then the political establishment doesn't, you know, submit to it. What happens, you know, like, and nothing happened to Andrew Jackson, and, you know, he just blatantly and willfully completely disregarded what the Supreme Court of the United States had to say about the Trail of Tears. So Henry Clay was a person who was opposed to that, and that's what the Whigs were all about. The Whigs were actually like an anti-tyrannical party. They hated tyranny, and Jackson was a tyrant. Henry Clay, he comes up out of Kentucky. He inspired Abraham Lincoln. He's kind of a mixed figure, okay? So he's starts talking about being against slavery, but he himself, as a plantation owner, has 60 slaves. His plantation, Ashland is what they call it, right? The Grand Ashland Plantation is in Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky. So, you know, unlike Washington also, he doesn't free them or he frees them, my bad. George Washington does not free his slaves, but Henry Clay does free his slaves. The reason why I say I would say he's a moderate, okay? He talked about anti-slavery. He was against Andrew Jackson. He was against the Mexican-American War in 1848. He's opposed to the annexation of Texas, but he was also pro-War of 1812. So he sends all these Kentuckians to die. You know, the War of 1812 was just about Ameri Indian land. It's the third white man's civil war for Ameri Indian land after the Revolution and after the French and the British and American War. War of 1812, murder Tecumseh, 1813. So the reason why I say he's in the middle, because he wasn't completely anti-slavery. He mentioned anti-slavery. He inspires Abraham Lincoln to be the man that he is. But Henry Clay himself was a plantation owner. He owned 60 slaves, and he wasn't for full-blown emancipation. He was for recolonization. I mean, where they would send back to Africa. So he was with the Back to Africa movement, sort of like with, I think, Sierra Leone or Monrovia. I don't know. They did that right after the British sent a lot of folks back to Africa. So that's what he was for. He was for sending folks back to Africa, not giving black folks their complete freedom. A good, important first step, but he's not the anti-slave person that we need for him to be.